harder, and a lot of people have had their hand in this, and we're extremely fortunate to be able to go out there and play and coach because of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and I just want to make sure I mention that. Also, there were multiple players who were not available for practice today, two of which were positive COVID tests, and per the NBA's COVID guidelines, we're not at liberty to discuss who they are, but I just want to make everyone aware that they were not the only two players out. But we're not at liberty to disclose for what reasons players were out of practice, just to get out in front of that. And I'm good with questions when you guys are.
Thank you, Coach. We will kick it off with Joe Masato with the Oklahoman.
Yeah, Mark, I just was wondering what the first day of team practice was like, even without everyone there, and sort of what the emphasis was today.
It was a normal first day. There's a lot to get through, a lot to get in. The players were really engaged and worked really hard. I think everybody was excited to be back in the gym. We had a team meeting to start, and Sam started that meeting. And one of the things he said is that it's the first time we've had a group in our gym since March 11th or even earlier. So it's pretty amazing to think about that. And so I think there's a lot of gratitude in the gym today. We were all excited to be back at it. The emphasis was just style of play on both ends of the floor, identity on both ends of the floor, just getting our base system established, getting our terminology communicated, and making sure that we're all starting from a very clear baseline of how we want to play on both ends of the floor.
I know there's certain things you can't go into as far as telling us more about the positive COVID results, but can you give us an idea of how many players were available to practice today?
We fluctuated, I think, from 14 or 15 down to, we had guys that were on different protocols physically as well, that maybe didn't participate in contact. So we fluctuated from about 11 to 15 throughout the practice, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
Up next, we have Daniel Bell with Black Sports Online.
Hey, Coach. Last year, Sam said that the goal for the season, for the end of the season, was to be playing meaningful games at the end of the season. So I was just wondering what the goal for this season was.
I think it's always to prepare to play meaningful games. It's to make every single experience meaningful throughout the year, so that we're building habits so that when the meaningful games do come, we're ready for them. And so I think that's a goal that he laid out that transcends, the stage of your team or what your record is at a given point in time. That's always the goal, is to build habits professionally, build habits on the court that are going to show up when it matters most. And, the other thing to understand with these players is the stakes are high when you're a professional basketball player. It's not easy to be a professional basketball player, and there's no such thing as a non-meaningful game or a non-meaningful minute for the players that are in our gym. They care deeply, starting with our exhibition games. They care deeply about every single minute they play because of how much they care. And so we try to certainly match that when we prepare our practices and put, what we put out in front of them today.
Thank you, Coach. Next, we'll go to Nick Gallo with Thunder Broadcasting.
Mark, wanted to know if you kind of have an idea already of maybe defensive schemes that you want to play this year, if you have some in mind, or is it a situation where you have to adapt night to night and play different schemes depending on the opposition?
I'd say 90% of it or more is not adaptation. It's base. And so, so much of defense is individual defense. That's unchanging, and it's critical every single night, every single position. So much of defense is help defense, having a really active shell. That doesn't change night to night. What does change a little bit is coverages, but we have a base coverage that we feel comfortable with, that we'll play on most nights, and there'll be certain circumstances based on our personnel or maybe based on what's going on in the game that we adapt off that. But the adjustments and the adaptations are fewer and further between relative to the core foundational habits that we're trying to establish on that end of the floor.
Next, we have Paris Lawson with OKCThunder.com.
Hey, Coach, one constant we've heard from the guys that we've been able to talk to over these past couple of days is how, everybody's willing to do whatever's asked or needed of them from this team. And I wanted to ask, on your end, how have you seen that level of buy-in kind of play out over these first 6 days of training camp?
It's been a really great group of guys, and a lot of them are making first impressions in the organization. And I have a lot of respect for the way that they've tried to do so. We've had a great group that's been paying attention, highly engaged, really eager to learn and curious about how we're doing things. And, as I'm sure you guys are aware of, this is an organization that has high standards for the team. And when we've laid out our high standards, that's been met with excitement from these guys. And that's also encouraging to see. So, everybody had a good day today. It's comes down to your ability to sustain it tomorrow and the day after and into the dead of February and March. But, to this point, the approach from the players and the engagement from the players has been outstanding.
We'll go back to Joe Masato with the Oklahoman.
Mark, what have you seen from Frank Jackson so far, and what sort of strengths can he bring to the team?
Well, first and foremost, what I mentioned the other day, just in the last question, what I mentioned is he's been highly engaged and he's excited to be here. I think he's viewing this as a fresh start. He's communicated that to us, and he's approached his work like that. It's hard to onboard as a new player. I think his schedule last week, he had a ton of onboarding meetings. He had a ton of meetings with people around the organization, and then he had a workout, and he's kind of chewing that up and spitting it out. And then on the court, he's obviously a guy that has a great force to his game. He's a good athlete. He's got speed. He's strong. And he's a guy that pays attention and wants to learn. And so we're excited about working with him here.
And we'll go back to Daniel Bell with Black Sports Online.
Because everyone we've talked to so far has spoken extremely high on you. So I was just wondering, how does that give you confidence in going into your first season as an NBA head coach?
Are you referring to players or are you referring to?
Yeah, players and Sam.
Yeah, I've always drawn great confidence from the players that I've had the opportunity to coach. And the number one reason for that confidence is how they play. This is a group of guys that want to learn. It's a group of guys that want to work. It's a group of guys that want to execute. They paid attention today. They tried to be ready. They put their best foot forward. That's the thing that gives you the most confidence, is when you have a group of people that are committed to their craft and committed to being great professionals. And when you're coaching, that's all you can ask for. And when the group of guys bring that to the table, that's what gives you the most confidence. In terms of what they say, it's more about how they go out and play and act. And this group has been great so far.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys.